Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Georgia Gang on this Sunday, November 30th. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Green announces her resignation, triggering a high-stakes special election in Georgia's 14th district. Also, a vaccine firestorm as U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock calls for the immediate firing of the Health and Human Services Secretary. And dozens of players suspended as the Georgia High School Association punishes Brunswick and Gainesville after a massive playoff brawl. Kathy, Phil, Theron, and Brian are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
We want to begin with a bombshell announcement in Georgia's election interference case against President Donald Trump. Georgia Prosecuting Attorneys Council Director Pete Skandalakis, who appointed himself as prosecutor in the case, has filed a motion to drop the case entirely. Let's get right to this with the panel. Brian, just your thoughts on this. Surprised? Probably not.
I can't say I'm surprised because everything that happened in this order is exactly what I've said from this chair was going to happen, right down to the letter. That this was not a local case, it was a federal case. If anything, that it shouldn't be a RICO case because that's overly aggressive for what we were doing here. This case never had legs to stand on. It is a giant waste of Fulton County taxpayers' dollars. And now those same taxpayers are going to be on the hook for the legal fees of those who were being prosecuted. And look, Skandalakis did not have the resources to take this on, but it's more than that. He said this was a flawed case. That was the underlying message. This should never have been brought to begin with.
Theron, your underlying message here.
Well, you know, Phil and Brian, surprise, surprise. This happened the day before the Thanksgiving holiday. We're taping on a Wednesday. I got to give Brian credit and Phil. You guys have been steadfast in saying that this was going to be a case that was going to be dropped. But, Laura, you know where I'm going with this. I think that it's very unfair. I think it's a huge blow to the justice system. The fact that you had 19 people who were indicted, one of whom just happened to be at that time, the former president, now president again of the United States of America. And so, look, you know, I think Pete was put in a very, very tough position. At least he gave it some time to look at. I hope he reviewed it, followed those steps that I laid out a couple weeks ago. But ultimately, look, we move on from this. But I think that it is very, very slippery slope that you can literally have these type of things happen, whether it's a state case or federal case. But the justice system, I guess, got it right. But ultimately, you know, I think Pete Skandalakis knew that this would have put him in a very, very tough position if he decided to move forward with this case.
Phil, and I feel like the opponents of the president keep looking for things and trying to find a smoking gun, and then this is the outcome after every single case, it seems.
Well, I agree. This is the last of the lawfare case. It never should have been brought. It's Pete Skandalakis, who we're referring to as the executive director of the Prosecuting Council Attorneys of Georgia, a very respected, fair, objective person, and he was pretty bold and flatly said that this should never have been a RICO case, and I want to tell some of my Republican and Democrat friends, Skandalakis said everyone has a right to question an election outcome. He was very firm about that, and so I think that's why that was the basis, a lot of the main basis for this, that it never should have been brought. And I think Fonnie Willis is the loser of the year. This is a disgrace, as has been pointed out. I don't know how many millions of taxpayer money that the taxpayers of Fulton County will be on the hook for. There's 19 people that are involved here, along with the president, and you have to the next step will be reimbursing all of these people's legal fees. That could run up to $30–40 million. I'm just taking a ballpark figure here. That's terrible. Fonnie Willis is a disgrace. She never should have brought this case. And I think that moving on, I hope some lessons are learned that we should not engage in this politically motivated lawfare. That's all it was.
And Kathy, as we were talking about before the show, this also impacts Coffee County cases as well.
Yeah, that I'm really concerned about, and I think this kind of goes to why you shouldn't overuse RICO, right, as your way to settle cases, because that's really distinct from the case that was brought against the president. These are people who allegedly, and on video, let people into an election office after an election to view materials that they didn't have the right to view, and they've been let go as a result of this. And I'm stressed about that, because we cannot have people just ignoring the law in that way. But I will also say I think this is a real opportunity for somebody who, wants to be the attorney prosecuting cases in Fulton County, because I think Fonnie Willis has really brought this on herself.
100%. So well said. And I want to actually.
And I've said it before.
No, you
just,
absolutely
just
have.
to get to I told you
you've
so,
been very
right?
consistent here.
Right.
But on the Coffee County case, I agree that that stuff should not have happened. That was an error in judgment, and maybe a crime was committed. They definitely should not have been breaking down those election machines and letting people look inside of them. That is a security issue for elections from the people who keep telling me these machines aren't safe, and then they're breaking into it.
Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger never investigated it properly.
And it had nothing to do with Fulton County.
But it had nothing to do with
But he
Fulton
could have.
County.
He had oversight and could have spoken out.
I want to stick to this case here. This had no business being part of a Fulton County case. Of course, neither did what Donald Trump did, for that matter. These folks were told that this was a legal process in case a court case went their way. When it didn't, they all dropped it. That should have been the end of this. The Coffee County part was just another overreach, but I agree something was fishy and wrong about what happened down there.
All right, I want to move on because we have another political shockwave in Georgia this week. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Green announced she's resigning from Congress in January. The move comes after a dramatic public split with former President Donald Trump, who withdrew his endorsement as they clashed over the release of the Epstein investigative files. Green says Trump used his influence and campaign dollars to try to drive her out. Trump fired back, mocking her online. Now, the resignation ends one of the most controversial and high-profile runs in Georgia politics and opens the door to a special election in the 14th district. Phil, Congresswoman Green posted a lengthy explanation on YouTube about her decision. Do you see this as a deeper problem? I mean, is this a party that punishes independence?
Well, I've seen this in my career. I've seen both parties where this divorce type happens, and it can continue to be bad, or it could be patched up, and who knows how that's going to end. I do think it was a surprise. Personally, and a lot of Republicans had hoped that if she was going to quit, just finish out your term. I really, unless there's some compelling reasons, I don't like anyone of any party just leaving in their term, and it does pose problems, of course, for just the political impact in Georgia and nationally for House Speaker Mike Johnson, because it's a very narrow margin anyhow. I noticed there's going to be a special election in Tennessee. I hope the GOP wins that one to help. But just to finish up with what you're pointing out here, Lori, I think that it's not going to have a big impact on the Republican Party nationally. I think, as I've said before, the radical left is a great unifier for Republicans of all stripes.
Well, Theron, though, is this a sign that the MAGA coalition is fracturing?
Absolutely. And, we talked about this. I've said for weeks I wasn't buying it. I'm still not buying it, Lori, because I think that, and B-Rob and I talked about this, if you look at that video, and I watched it 10 minutes, and she said a lot. But it was some damn good production. I mean, the lighting was looking good, Kathy. She had the Christmas tree perfectly, positioned, and then she was, good cadence and everything. So this is a woman, Lori, who we're going to hear from again. But I think that back to your original question to me, I've been saying now for weeks on this show, I think people have buyer's remorse. A lot of disaffected Republicans are not getting what they expected for President Trump. And you just look at this fight. This is another politically abusive relationship that Donald Trump has had with someone in Georgia.
Brian, what does this mean for Republicans?
Anytime you take on President Trump in the party, there's going to be some repercussions, right? I mean, he is the biggest hammer that we have in the party and across the nation. I do think that she should have stayed in the office, and I do think that she should have run again. I think she would have won. I think that she could have taken on that and gone to victory. In 2022, her counties that elected her also gave a majority vote to Brad Raffensperger in that primary, somebody who was being taken on by Trump, Brian Kemp. So we know a Trump-endorsed candidate can be beat in that district, particularly one with such deep roots and high favorability ratings as she has in that district. I agree with Theron. There was a lot of substance in what she said in her resignation video. She wasn't just airing grievances. She was talking about issues that matter to Americans. This sounded like somebody who's not done with her work for the country, even if she wants to take a break. I think she's just exhausted.
That's my question. Before we get to Kathy, will we see her on the ballot somewhere else?
I sure hope so.
You know, Trump told her you can't win a statewide election. And under her old profile, I think that was true. The polling was pretty clear. She can't run for governor or run for U.S. Senate and win a general election. That matters. But she could certainly throw some dirt up in the air and cause quite a circus in a primary. And she's obviously got some ideas. I mean, she will make a difference if she runs for governor.
Or she could be a political pundit on a cable news show.
Well, I thought if she had stayed in, she could have actually been a force to be reckoned with, because there is enough discontent in the Republican caucus, as I understand it, that, you know, half a dozen people get together and decide they want to caucus with Democrats on a couple of specific issues, and suddenly she's got the reins in her hands, and I think she could bring down Mike Johnson, but she's leaving, so she won't.
All right, well,
too bad.
Continue to follow her next steps. All right, everyone. Up next, why Senator Raphael Warnock wants the nation's health secretary fired, what sparked the controversy at the CDC, and how the debate over vaccine trust has suddenly reignited.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Secretary Raphael Warnock is calling for the immediate firing of his secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., accusing him of spreading dangerous vaccine misinformation as measles cases resurge across the country. The push comes as a CDC website update muddied long-standing guidance on vaccines and autism, sparking public confusion and bipartisan criticism. Theron, what do you make of all of this? Because as we were talking, we are all confused about where we are with the vaccines.
Yeah, I mean, and look, we need a leader that's running the Health and Human Services that's going to follow the science and not remove it from the website. And this is what the senator is getting to. If you really look at it, it's confusing because you see this headline, you're like, oh, CDC says that vaccines can cause autism. Well, that's not exactly what it says. It's basically they're encouraging the people to follow the science. I think you just got a lot of bad actors within the Health and Human Services. But what Senator Warnock is getting to, and Lori, you remember this months ago, I took something that he said and we researched it. We do have kids that are actually dying of measles and going back to school. People right now are getting their flu shots. And people are very, very concerned about, like, will we have another sort of deadly pandemic like we had before? And we still act like folks are not catching COVID. I mean, you know, we kind of hear it amongst our friends, but it's just now become so rare. I mean, so often that it's not rare anymore, and people just kind of deal with it. And so I think Senator Warnock is very passionate about this. I think he's putting the pressure on, but again, we got to follow the science. And I still say this too, parents, you got to make a personal decision when you decide with your kids, right? And I think we all have made those decisions as far as our loved ones and our children, our family members, but ultimately we got to make sure that we don't distort the information and don't mislead the American people.
Phil.
Well, I think there's two schools of thought basically that are warring against each other within the Health and Human Services Department. The Biden, of course, years were terrible because they would just censor one side. Now, Robert Kennedy, the secretary, has said, I'm not opposed to all vaccines. What he's doing, the good thing he's doing, is that he is asking for more studies. Now, I think that some of this can't be determined, and I agree that some of the people around him, I think, are off base. But I think, on the other hand, and the president is hearing from both sides, there's some good arguments, too. I think what's going to happen, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some cabinet reshuffling next year in the Trump White House, and that RFK might be a target.
Kathy?
Boy, I hope he is. I just want to really give a shout out to Senator Warnock because, you know, this lane about health care is a strong one for him, and it's a strong one from Georgia. You know, we haven't expanded Medicaid, so we've got a crisis in our hospitals. The governor's health care portal is an absolute failure. The CDC's in our backyard and has been riveted by this mess that Robert Kennedy Jr. has created, and we've lost billions of dollars in medical research dollars that come here to our universities and hospitals here in Georgia. So I think this is just a full policy portfolio for him, and I'm glad to see him taking it on, and really appreciate it. And I hope that shuffle comes because it won't be too soon for me.
I talked to doctors because I'm super confused about this. Not only do I take whatever vaccine my doctor tells me because I trust them, I have a relationship of trust, that's why I go there. So I take vaccines, my kid takes vaccines, and I believe in that science, but I don't know why. I'm not an expert. And I hear people who I trust and think are smart and mean well who say, this is absolutely needed, that it doesn't cause autism, there's absolutely zero evidence that it causes autism. And then I hear other doctors that I trust who say the the vaccines that I got as a child in the late 70s, early 80s bear no resemblance to what children of today get. There's significantly more that's been put into these, and we don't know what the repercussions of that. I don't know what's true, but this comes down to a lack of trust in our society. We no longer have common places we go that we all agree to trust. I really would love to have an answer, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. So, all right, let's move on, because here's another issue of trust. Internal emails obtained by the AJC show deep infighting inside Georgia's state election board after members clash over the hiring of the former executive director's wife as the board's new paralegal. Despite her having no legal experience, the messages reveal altered job qualifications, accusations of nepotism, and simmering tensions on a board already criticized as dysfunctional. Kathy.
Whew, well, we've talked about this situation previously, and let me just say, you know, Speaker John Burns needs to own this and fix it in the General Assembly session. His appointment of Janelle King threw gas on the fire, and we have never looked back. It is really a mess. But, you know, having somebody, they have one paralegal position. They don't have an attorney on that staff, and the previous paralegal did a great job, and she left because it got too crazy there, I suspect. They hired somebody who was the wife of the former executive director who leaped over people who were qualified and were waiting to get interviewed, and she has no paralegal experience. So they don't have the legal advice that they need to get, even though even though it's not a full-fledged lawyer. Having somebody who understands the law to say, no, that's not an open meeting, or no, you can't hide your emails, would save the state of Georgia an awful lot of money, and citizens could have more trust in this board.
Phil, weigh in here.
Well, Kathy is referring to the 3 Republican board members that are pro-Trump on the state elections board, and Janelle King is one of them. Now, they do get legal advice. Mike Cohn was the previous executive director. We're talking about his wife. She had already done some work for the state elections board. She knew exactly what was going on. When James Mills was named, who, by the way, is a former respected lawmaker, James Mills is now executive director, he thought this is the best person for a seamless transition. And of course, the Democrats freaked out, and some Republicans did too. But it goes down to one bottom line. The chairman, John Fervier, despises Mike Cohn and doesn't like his wife.
All right.
I'm going to be real quick. I think this is a reality TV show opportunity. Mm-hmm. So, Kathy, if you're willing to raise a little money, we should actually create a reality TV show, because this elections board is a hot mess. But I'm going to give some time to Brian, because I know we got to wrap.
No, I just reiterate what I said last week. It's time for personnel change across the board and start over. Without naming names, I disagree about Fervier. I think he's done a great job. He's a voice of reason there, but he's being outvoted, and we need a new direction.
All right, folks. Coming up, fallout after a fight during a high school football game. The panel weighs in about the penalties handed down to both teams.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
A major fallout in Georgia high school football this week. The GHSA has issued sweeping penalties after that playoff brawl between Brunswick and Gainesville, suspending 41 Brunswick players, fining the school $5,000, and banning the program from the postseason for a full year. Gainesville also saw 39 players suspended, though 4 were reinstated, as both districts now face questions about sportsmanship and accountability. Theron, this is something that you hate to see in sports, but I feel like we're seeing more and more of it.
I hate to see it. And, you know, as someone who played high school football and I played college football as well, you know, you got to listen to what the Gainesville coach was saying. Never met the guy. So, look, you know, I'm Clark Central High School. Unfortunately, we lost in the playoffs. But when you see your fellow person, in this case, your fellow male student athlete, literally getting their helmet ripped off, right? And then a fight breaks out. It is the natural instinct to run to protect your brother, right? Because you playing a game, especially if you're getting blown out. I mean, you're mad and all that stuff. But it's got to be an immediate step in from the players to try to grab. And I think that tried to happen. But what you saw here, Lori, is that we got to be careful with these young men, because what they see in the NFL, right? At the end of the San Francisco 49ers game recently, Carolina Panthers, Juan Jennings was inappropriately hit in the groin area. He retaliated at the end of the game. So we see that violence on television. So I commend this coach for speaking up and speaking out, but I also think that the Georgia High School Association had to have some penalties in place, but they were a little stiff, because now these people go on, they don't have their players going forward. And last thing is, the parents have got to continue to talk to our young folks. And so again, I want to be clear. I don't condone, I don't support what happened. There should have never been a brawl, but I do think that when you see your fellow man getting beat down and getting jumped, in that case, you definitely need to run to protect that
Yeah,
person.
I mean, if I was a mom in those stands, good gosh. Brian.
Absolutely. Look, I think there should be some look at the fact that there's an instigator here. I think that should matter. Retaliation obviously is not allowed. Clearing the bench is not allowed. The rules are very clear, and that's what they are implementing. But we had one side that was ripping off helmets and punching people in the face who had their hands up. I do think that there needs to be some balance in how that is approached. So it's terrible for Gainesville going into another playoff game. They won, so they have more to come. That's a lot of players to lose. I think that people who are going out there ripping players off of the pile, trying to stop it, they should not be suspended. I don't know that the number should be anywhere near this high for Gainesville.
All right, I want to move on because we want to remind viewers that Election Day is actually Tuesday for the November runoffs. Kathy, what races are you watching?
Well, not a lot of them, quite frankly. I'm watching the school board runoff in Atlanta between, well, my candidate, Royce Mann, and another person. And so, you know, it's just a little tiny race, but I think what's important is for people to go to my voter page on the Secretary of State's website and enter their information and find out what races apply to them. And then get out on Tuesday and vote. You really got to make that decision. As we've seen just recently in the presidential election, what you do matters, and so every single one of them matters.
Phil, we talked about Sandy Springs last week. What about the city of Roswell?
Well, I think Mayor Kurt Wilson is in the runoff, and I think he should get back in. Of course, it all depends on turnout. I am looking at one city council race, and that's District 7, where Thomas Worthy, I think, is worthy as a candidate.
Atlanta City Council.
In Atlanta City Council, that's right. And so, and there's other municipal elections also.
Theron.
All right, I'll be quick. Also, District 7, but also District 11 in the Atlanta City Council race. There's a runoff there between Wayne Martin and Nate Jester. Also in East Point, they have a mayoral election runoff there. Also the city of South Fulton. I got it in. They beat me up, Lori, and we don't talk about these other cities, but you'll have a mayoral election there in a runoff in the city of South Fulton. Also, Aaron Johnson is running in a runoff against Stephanie Johnson in the city of South Fulton. And then in Sandy Springs, I think it's District 4. There's a runoff there as well. Right. So I just want to pause. Oh, and then Kathy mentioned one school board race. There are two other Atlanta public school races, too, school board. So save Brian a little time, but make sure if you live in East Point, Roswell, Sandy Springs, South Fulton, Atlanta, go vote on Tuesday.
Brian, I got 30 seconds for you.
Anywhere in the state. Yeah.
Phil mentioned Thomas Worthy. He and I were on the Hill together 20 years ago. We were in the Dillett administration together, and he is a great guy. He would be a great leader for the city of Atlanta. And let me tell you, he's a fantastic character, too. He would be a lot of fun to watch on that dais.
So he gave us some stuff to talk about.
Absolutely.
Huh? All right. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right. Y'all have been talking a lot. Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Oh, Brian,
Okay,
let
Brian.
Brian go. We'll just run it down.
My winner is appeals court judge Stephen Dillard, who won the prestigious William Rehnquist Judicial Excellence Award bestowed upon him by U.S. Supreme Court Justice John Roberts.
Wow.
And he is a fantastic guy to serve Georgia for more than 15 years on the court. So congratulations to you, Judge Dillard. And I would like to send my condolences to longtime Fox 5 I-Team investigative reporter Dale Russell, whose daughter died of cancer just a few weeks after the death of his longtime wife and the mother of his children just a few weeks before. So Dale, we're thinking about you and we love you.
We are. We're praying for you, Dale. All
Yeah,
right,
I'll offer my condolences to Dale, too. I did not know that, so I wanted to echo that. All right, first, it's Thanksgiving. Just passed, but listen, thank you all so much to our viewers. I don't thank you guys enough for watching. I know you see us have spirited debates. I talk to you guys when we're out and about in the community. Yes, I get along with Phil. Yes, I get along with Brian. But ultimately, thank you all so much for supporting the show. And also, I want to give a huge shout out and make a winner, Senator John Ossoff. Lori, you remember him talking about White County. It was this new library down there, and he was able to secure a federal grant for that. And then lastly, all of the organizations, I just want to name a few: Feeding Georgia Families, the NAACP of DeKalb County, the Atlanta Community Food Bank, different organizations, Hosea Helps. These are all organizations, Lori, who spent the week going out, and I actually had a chance to join Andrea Boone on the South Side with Clifford T.I. Tip Harris, Phil, I think you know who that is, and we passed out some turkey. But people are hungry in this city, in this state, and there were a lot of people lined up, but thank you to those organizations.
And I was on the South Side as well at Caring for Others, which is another fabulous organization. They fed more than 1,500 folks and they were just lining it up, and they were really organized. So a big shout out to Dr. Esleen Shockley. Okay.
Well, both
Phil.
of you, yeah, those are good winners. I've got a winner, and it's our own state transportation commissioner, Russell McMurray. He was just named the president of this 50-state national organization of all the transportation commissioners. It's called AASHTO. That's the acronym. And basically, its mission and his mission will be to make sure every congressional district in the country gets the proper funding and has the infrastructure plans in place. He's going to work with Congress. So that's a bipartisan thing. So he's a great winner. And of course, Donald Trump, our president, was a winner this week. Fonnie Willis, the loser of the year, since that case is gone now.
All right. Well, that's a really big honor for Russell McMurray, and who better to do that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
My winner this week is Councilmember-elect in Atlanta, Kelsey Bond. She is already at work. She put together a YouTube video telling people why the mayor's proposal for tax allocation districts extensions is a bad idea. At the end of a long public comment period, the mayor's guy came down and said they're going to delay the vote till the new council members are sworn in. So way to go, Kelsey Bond. My loser is Representative Buddy Carter for suggesting that I should come to Atlanta. We don't need that. We got a state that's good. We already saw that Hyundai raid go down and kind of burn everybody's bridges. So let's just keep that out of that, and let's keep him out of the Senate too.
All right, and I'll give a shout out to the Fostering Success Act. They hosted their first ever Fostering Thanksgiving for foster kids who have aged out of care. It was very inspiring and it was very great. Make it a great one. We'll see you next week.